am returning to classical chess. Alexandra Botez has invited me to Botez camp. What she did not tell me, however, is that in the very first round, I will be facing off against two-time American women's champion, as well as women grandmaster, Jennifer Yu. Jennifer is insanely good, and she and I have been playing chess together since we were little kids. Anyways, this is how our game went down. The game goes d4, knight to f6, c4, e6. None of this was prep. I think Jennifer also didn't really do prep, but after b6, g3, bishop to a6, this is just standard Queen's Indian defense stuff. I don't really know the theory here. I'm sure that the engine thinks more or less everything is fine. I do think, however, that at this very specific moment, instead of playing knight to c6 in the game, what I could have done instead is knight b to d7. And the idea of knight b to d7 is the same as knight to c6. However, when I played knight to c6, after knight to c6, bishop takes c6, Jen had this breakthrough with b4, which destroys my pawn structure a little bit because I can't play c takes b4 because I lose my bishop on c6. So knight to b to d7 serves the exact same purpose of developing my knight, supporting my center potentially with knight to b6, without any of the stress of b4. But anyways, I didn't think about that, so we went into this line with b4, and now I have to temporarily give up my c5 pawn. After b takes c5, bishop to b5, I decide to attack both the c pawn and the e pawn all at once. However, here, perhaps a better move would have been simply knight to d7, which I know is not all that logical because you're moving a knight backwards. But after knight to b3, bishop to a4, I have some very easy ideas with knight takes c5. If the bishop takes the pawn on d5, I can play bishop to f6, and I just have a more active position overall than what happened in the game. In the game after bishop b5, knight to b3 defends both the c pawn as well as the e pawn. I go bishop to c4, cutting off the queen from protecting the c5 pawn. However, after bishop to b2, a5, rook to d1. I have the idea of pushing a4 with the a5 move, so I play a4. I get to take the pawn back. However, she also gets to take my a pawn. So now, once again, I am down a pawn. Being down a pawn is not the worst. However, I decide to play bishop takes d6, thinking that I can simply capture the pawn on e2. That actually led to a lot of issues, so I think a better move here would once again have been something like rook to e8. There is not that much hurry in having to recapture the pawn. For example, if she plays something like e3, I can go knight to e4, and I have the pair bishops for now, so does she, but she might have to trade off this knight because this knight can be really annoying, and this a pawn is also not going anywhere. And also I can move my rook over to the a file and put a lot of pressure on this pawn. So bishop takes d4 was perhaps a little bit rushed. After rook takes d4, bishop takes e2, rook to d2. I looked Jen in the eyes and was like, so are we going to draw this position or what? I mean, obviously I can't say that out loud during the game, but that's definitely what I thought. So I go rook to e8, and after rook to c1, I thought that my position was going to be pretty peachy, but she plays bishop d4 followed by bishop takes f6, which actually causes me to lose the pawn on d5. Now, I was a little stressed in this situation because that means that I will be going into the endgame down a pawn, which is not amazing when you're playing against somebody 70 points higher rated than you. So after rook c8, rook takes d5, h6, I am going to this queen rook endgame, being down a pawn, which is also a pass pawn and is honestly kind of terrifying. So she logically pushes her pawn up, which, you know, pawns, when they reach the back rank, they promote. So I'm like, I have to stop this. And what better way to stop a pass pawn than to put your rook behind the pawn? That's what I'm trying to do here. She obviously can't really stop rook to a3, so I get to play rook a3, actually with another threat of playing rook to a1, which if she ignores, she would lose her queen because this would be a pin. So of course she sees that and does not let me play rook to a1 and plays rook d4 instead. Here I play the very logical, in my mind, g6 move so that I can hide my king on g7. I think this position was really interesting. I might have had some g5 ideas even, and maybe try to cause some havoc on her king. But I thought that this game could potentially be a draw, so I decided to play g6. Also, after rook to c3, here, she thought for basically 20 minutes, and I offered a draw, which she unfortunately declined, but I was like, Jen, I think this is going to be a draw. Do you believe me or not? From this position onwards, though, Jen forced me to play another 3 hours. So, Jen, we're no longer friends. But anyways, I respect her decision to not accept the draw and instead play rook to d4, which stops me from playing rook to a1. After g6, rook to d8, I play king to g7, queen d4, going for the trade of queens. And at this point, I knew that this position was a dead draw. Okay, I have seen this position in Dvoretsky's endgame manual. I have seen this position a million times since I was 7 years old. In fact, the last time I probably looked at this position, I was 9. I have not studied rook endgames in over 10 years, but I knew deep in my bones that this was going to be a draw. Now, for a little context, I have been dying this tournament. I have been dying for weeks. I have had a cough for like 2 weeks now, and it has sucked playing this game.
How are we feeling post-game?
Well, that was... Sorry, I'm dying. That was an insane game. But Jen knows that, so she decides to push the game and almost makes me die. The amount of times I had to run out of the room in a coughing fit was crazy. I had both of my inhalers there and none of them were helping. But anyways, back to the game. 1, rook to a2, king to e1. She's just trying to move her king over, but any time that she moves her king over, her rook gets stuck on f4. So if she, for example, plays king to c1, I get to play g5, and then her rook has to make a decision between protecting the f pawn or protecting the a pawn. So here she decides to go back once again. I'm just shuffling my king around. I gotta be perhaps a little careful. I think most moves here are a draw. But, you know, I really didn't want to throw this game. This was my best chance to draw Jennifer Yu. And after she finally plays king to c1, I go with g5. And after king to b1, a little in-between move. If she, for example, takes on g5, I simply have f takes. When the rook moves, I can simply take on a4, which is going to be even a deader draw than it was earlier. At least with Jen having the extra pawn, she has the right to push this for a win, forcing me to prove my endgame skills after I have not played any endgames in a very long time. So, you know, I respect the grind. So rook to d2 is probably mandatory. If I go something like rook to e2, there's a lot of ideas here, like rook f3. Swapping off the rook is obviously disastrous for me, because if I ever swap off the rooks, this endgame, this king endgame would actually be a loss for me. But anyways, I play rook d2, she takes, I play f takes g5, rook f3. I calculated h4 would lead to this position where, once again, with only 2 pawns on the board now for Jen, and I still have 1, if I get one of her pawns off, it's going to be a draw. So she pushes, and I play rook to d5. If a6 here, I obviously have rook to a5, attacking this pawn, and she's going to lose it. So she plays rook a3 defending, but I get to play h3. And if she pushes a6, this is actually becomes a winning game for me, because I have a2, rook h3, rook d1 with the check, king to c2, and h1 promoting into a queen, where my promotion square is protected. So after rook takes h3, I take on a5, king c1. I make this slight error with rook a2. Obviously, a lot of moves here are drawn, but cutting the king off on the second is not really all that ideal, because the king can go around her pawn and come up this way. So a much better move in this position, much easier to draw, would have been simply rook to d5. And now the king can never cross the d file, is 2 files away from her pawn, cannot assist this pawn to promote, and also at the same time, all I need is to have my king roughly in front of the pawn, and this pawn will never go anywhere, and I can just shuffle my rook along the d file. So I made a slight strategic error here and actually stressed myself out so much. There was more than one moment during the game where I was like, oh shit, did I almost like lose this game. But after king e4, engine once again says all of this is a draw. I was so stressed. You gotta understand, like, we've been playing this game for 5 hours. I was kind of tired. Jen was, you know, very determined. She looked determined. I looked her in the eyes a few times and I was like, Jen, are we really doing this? Are you really making me prove myself that I can, like, are you really making me prove that I can draw this rook endgame in a 6-hour game in a content tournament where we're playing in the beautiful hills of Malibu? You really don't want to go have dinner or go on a hike or something? But anyways, the last time I played these, I was probably trying to flag people. Even with the white pieces, I don't even know if I would, like, you know, yeah, I just flag people. That's my usual style playing chess. So getting into this was slightly stressful, but I got extremely resourceful near the end. The pawn slowly was inching up, so I got a little scared. But I realized that in this position, all I have to do is put my rook on the 5th rank, and if she ever plays f5, I have rook to b1, and then I will deliver a flurry of checks from the back. And this is called the famous Philidor position. And I have known this endgame, Jen has probably known this endgame since we were 7. So it's honestly wild that she made me prove that I knew how to draw this, but I proved that I knew how to draw this and she eventually gives up. Makes me, you know, go capture her rook and we go into this position. If she doesn't do that, the best that she can do is shuffle her king around. So this would be a draw at some point whenever she accepts it. And she can never move her king to stop taking the checks because I will always capture her pawn. So yeah, it was a 93 move game. I feel like I defended pretty well. Jen, I have to give a big shout out to for pushing this game to the 5.5 hour mark, for making me play 93 moves in my first ever game in 2 years. And of course I drew the black pieces, so yeah. I honestly haven't played classical chess in 2 years. I haven't seen a rook endgame where I actually tried to win it in probably longer than that. And the girl that I am sharing a bathroom with, who we were bonding this morning over our shared trauma over chess, really decided to play like a 90 move game or something. And I was just like, please, Jen, I am dying here. Like, my asthma is killing me. I would like to take a break. But anyways, I'm so glad that it's done. I'm really happy with the result. Obviously, a draw is honestly better than I hoped for. I was really just hoping to like tell people that, yeah, I can still play chess, but I'm really happy with the draw.
And you stated in your first interview that this would be your last Classico tournament.
Yes.
Starting now, you just drawed with the favorite to win. So are you already rethinking of maybe this not being your last tournament?
No. I almost never do a recap, so I would really appreciate it if you guys let me know what you think of this in the comments down below, as well as thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know competitive chess is not really my thing, and my parents made sure of that, but I'm back, and I want to crush this tournament. Today's game is exactly why this is going to be my last tournament ever. Thank you guys so much for watching.